Welcome to our channel. Today you will hear a story where a random encounter turned everything upside down. What choice would you make if faced with a dilemma between love and family? In this dramatic story, the heroine will face difficult decisions, and her life will change forever. What is more important, the heart or duty to family? Stay with us to find out. I had been planning this evening for weeks. My mom's birthday is a big event, and I wanted everything to go perfectly. My boyfriend Ryan was prepared as well. We've been dating for a year, and he is the kindest and most caring person I've ever known. Of course, he's not one to throw money around, but his warmth is far more valuable than any material goods. Ryan had spent a long time choosing a restaurant that wasn't too expensive but cozy, with a great atmosphere where we could have a peaceful evening with my mom. He even set aside money to make the dinner special, and I was grateful for his efforts. We were both nervous, as it was the first time he would be spending an evening with my mom. I hoped she would appreciate his sincerity and care, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the past. Daniel, my ex-boyfriend, was the complete opposite of Ryan. He had money, a lot of it. When we were together, my family adored him. Expensive gifts, lavish trips, restaurants that left me dizzy. But behind all these grand gestures, there was something much darker. He used his money to control me, dictating what I should do and when. I felt trapped, but my family either didn't notice or didn't want to. Ryan and I arrived at the restaurant, and I was confident the evening would go smoothly. Everything seemed perfect: a table by the window, the soft glow of candles, subtle music. We were having a warm conversation, and a light joy was written on my mom's and Ryan's faces. And then the door swung open. My heart froze for a moment. Daniel walked in. In his hands was a beautifully wrapped gift, and I immediately recognized the signature ribbon from one of the most expensive boutiques. Mom froze when she saw him, and then her eyes sparkled with joy, as if this was the happiest moment of her life. Daniel, as always, made a sudden and grand entrance, as if he knew the world should stop when he walked into a room. I felt all my strength suddenly leave me. How did he even know about Mom's birthday? We hadn't invited him. My first thought was that someone from our mutual friends had told him about the evening. And now he was here with that perfect expression on his face, as if nothing had happened, as if our painful history didn't matter. "Emily!" Daniel exclaimed joyfully, ignoring the surprise on my face. I just couldn't miss such an important day. He turned to my mom and handed her the beautifully wrapped box. "For you, Mrs. Hill, happy birthday. I hope you'll like it." My mom was practically glowing with happiness. Her smile grew even wider when she unwrapped the gift and saw an expensive designer bag inside. I could barely hide my disappointment, feeling a tight knot forming inside. Ryan sat silently, but I could see how nervous he was, feeling out of place amidst all this glamour. "Oh, Daniel, this is just wonderful." Mom marveled, turning to me. "Look, Emily, isn't it amazing? What a thoughtful young man." She couldn't stop praising him. Daniel glanced at the restaurant menu and suddenly suggested, "You know, why don't we go to a more fitting place? I know a great restaurant nearby. This place is nice, but Mrs. Hill, you deserve better on your birthday. What do you say?" I saw Ryan press his lips together. This was the moment when I should have said something, but Mom spoke first. "Of course, Daniel. What a wonderful suggestion. Why not?" Her joy was genuine, and she didn't even think to ask what Ryan and I thought about it. I glanced at Ryan, and in his eyes, I saw the pain that pierced me. I knew how hard he had worked to make this evening special, and now everything was falling apart. But what could I do? My mom, my family, they always saw something in Daniel that I had long stopped noticing. "Ryan," I whispered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder, "we can just go there. It's for Mom." "Of course," he replied, trying to hide how much it hurt. And so the evening that was supposed to be special for Ryan and me turned into a one-man show. Daniel. We moved to the expensive restaurant Daniel had suggested. Everything about the place screamed money: the luxurious interior, the perfectly pressed waiters, and a menu without prices, which I knew meant one thing: it was way beyond Ryan's budget. I stole a glance at him. His face remained calm, but I could see how uncomfortable he was. He kept his dignity, but it pained me to realize that all his efforts had been in vain. When we sat at the new table, Daniel once again took the lead. He started ordering dishes as if it were his evening, not my mom's. My mom was absolutely delighted. She couldn't take her eyes off him, and it seemed like she had completely forgotten about Ryan. The atmosphere was so awkward that I could barely hold back my tears. The whole situation felt like a grotesque parody of a family dinner. "Emily, just look how attentive Daniel is," Mom said as the waiter brought yet another expensive dish. "You were so happy with him. Why did you let him go?" I felt a wave of anger rise inside me. It was a punch straight to the heart. How could she not understand that there was no happiness with Daniel? All those years with him, I felt like I was on a leash, in a gilded cage where he decided what was best for me. But Mom had always ignored this. "Mom, let's not talk about this," I said, trying to speak calmly, though every word of hers was cutting me. "Well, why not, dear?" she continued, ignoring my request. "Daniel was the perfect boyfriend. The gifts, the trips. You had everything. Why did you choose a different path?" I saw Ryan clenching his fork, trying to stay calm. He wasn't used to being treated like this, and I felt horribly ashamed for him. It was as if I was to blame for my ex showing up and stealing the entire evening. "You had all the chances," Mom turned her gaze to Ryan and added, "but now you've settled for less." This was too much. I couldn't take it any longer. At that moment, I felt Ryan gently touch my hand under the table, trying to hold me back from a sharp response, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Mom, enough," I said, my voice tense. "Ryan is a wonderful person, and he makes me happy. His care, attention, and respect for me are more important than any gifts or restaurants." But she just waved it off as if I had said something foolish. "You're too young to understand. Daniel cared about you. You should be grateful for having such options. Not every woman has the luxury to choose between wealth and, well, what you have now." I felt a lump in my throat, and tears welled up in my eyes. I looked at Ryan, and in his eyes, I saw disappointment. He was trying not to show his pain, but I knew my mom's words hurt him. The whole evening was ruined. I was caught between a rock and a hard place. On one side, my mom, who didn't seem to understand how destructive her words were, and on the other, Ryan, who didn't deserve to be treated this way. After dinner, I barely held myself back from exploding right there in the restaurant. Daniel left, pleased with his show, and Ryan quietly said goodbye and left first, leaving me with my mom. I decided I couldn't stay silent any longer. As we walked to the car, an awkward silence hung in the air. But I could no longer hold back the anger that had been building all evening. "Mom, do you even realize what you just did?" I snapped, stopping and turning to face her. I saw her raise her eyebrows in confusion, as if she genuinely didn't understand what I was talking about. "You humiliated Ryan. All evening, you only praised Daniel and his money, completely ignoring my boyfriend. How could you?" "Emily, don't make a tragedy out of this," she replied calmly, as if my frustration was something trivial. "I just wanted you to see that you have a choice. Daniel is a man with a future. You could live like a queen. Why would you choose someone like Ryan when you had Daniel?" "Because Daniel didn't love me." My voice trembled with pent-up emotions. "He didn't care about me. He only cared about himself and his needs. His gifts, his restaurants, they were just a way to control me. And you didn't even see it. All you cared about was his money." "You're exaggerating," she said with a cold smile, waving her hand dismissively. "Daniel is a successful man, and you would have been better off with him. And Ryan," she hesitated, as if trying to choose gentler words, but there was still a note of disdain in her voice. "He's just not for you." My hands were shaking. How could she talk like this about someone who had done so much for me? How could she fail to see that money wasn't everything? "Ryan loves me. He's real. Do you understand? He doesn't buy me with gifts, but he's always there. He cares about me, he listens. That's something you've never understood." I felt tears welling up again, but I didn't want her to see my weakness. Mom rolled her eyes, as if my explanation was nothing more than naive sentimentality. "You're just young and naive. You don't see that you're cutting off your path to a better life. Daniel was ready to give you everything, and you chose what? Poverty? Love? Emily, wake up. In this world, only those who know how to choose correctly survive." I stood there in shock. Her words were like a knife to the heart. She would never understand that real feelings and respect were more important than money. At that moment, I realized that our relationship was doomed. Her view of life was too different from mine. "If you can't understand that Ryan is my choice, that I'm happy with him, then I don't know what else we have to talk about," I said, clenching my fists to keep from crying. "I won't let you humiliate him or me anymore." If money is more important to you than my happiness, then maybe we should spend less time together. Mom looked at me with cold eyes. Her face was as hard as stone. Do whatever you want, Emily. But when you realize you've made a mistake, don't say I didn't warn you. She turned and walked to the car, leaving me standing alone in the cold street. I watched her go, feeling like everything inside me was tearing apart. My mom, the person who was supposed to support me, turned her back on me for the illusion of an ideal life. After that night, I couldn't find peace. It felt like the conversation with my mom had left a huge emptiness in my soul. I returned home to Ryan, hoping his presence would help me cope with this feeling, but his look, full of pain and disappointment, only deepened my inner struggle. Emily, he began quietly as I walked into the room. We need to talk. I froze. I knew this conversation was inevitable, but I had hoped I could postpone it just a little longer. However, the tone of his voice made me uneasy. Ryan, I sat down next to him on the couch and took his hand. I'm so sorry for what happened. I tried to fix everything, but he gently pulled his hand away, distancing himself, and that small gesture hurt me more than anything. Emily, it's not just about what happened at the restaurant. His voice was calm, but I could see how hard it was for him to speak. I feel like your family will never accept me, and I'm not sure you're fully confident about our future either. My heart raced. How could he think that? Of course, I was sure about us. But now, everything he said echoed in my mind. He was right. My family would never accept him, and tonight had only confirmed that. Ryan, I love you. I don't care what my mom thinks. You are the most important thing to me. I desperately tried to convey to him that his fears were unfounded. But he only shook his head. Emily, your mom openly humiliated me in front of you. And you didn't say anything at first. You tried to stand up for me, yes, but it was too late. It's like you're more afraid of losing her approval than our relationship. His words pierced me. I tried to find an explanation, but guilt was growing inside me. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had indeed allowed my mom to interfere in my life for too long, afraid of breaking ties with her. I tried to do everything right, I said, struggling to hold back tears. But I was just stuck between you. She's my mom. I can't just turn my back on her. I understand that, Ryan said, his voice even quieter now, and there was bitterness in his eyes. But it doesn't change the fact that I don't see a future for us while your mom stands between us. She'll never accept me, and you won't be able to ignore her opinion. I felt tears rolling down my cheeks as I realized that this conversation could be the end of everything we had built together. I understood that my mom had always interfered in my relationships, but what could I do about it? I was torn between my love for Ryan and my fear of losing the last connection with my family. Are you asking me to choose? I asked, my voice trembling with pain. You want me to cut ties with my mom for us? Ryan looked at me, and his gaze was full of sorrow. I don't want to make you choose, Emily. But I can't live knowing that you'll always be torn between us. If that means we can't be together, then maybe the decision has already been made. My heart seemed to stop. I knew Ryan wasn't trying to manipulate me like Daniel had, but his words still felt like an ultimatum. To choose between the man who loved me and the family I had known all my life. I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat, and I just stared at him, realizing I was losing him. Ryan left. That night, when I was left alone in our apartment, everything around me seemed to dim. The silence weighed on me, and every corner reminded me of what once was, but was now irretrievably lost. I sat on the couch where he had been just hours earlier, and I felt the emptiness inside grow. I thought about what had happened. How one encounter, one evening, could have destroyed everything we had built together. Over and over, I replayed my mom's words in my head, realizing that they had echoed not only for Ryan but for me as well. She chose Daniel, chose money, comfort, and stability. For her, that was always the most important thing. The next day, I decided I needed to talk to her again, to try to explain everything. But when I called my mom, her voice was just as cold and distant as it had been that night. Emily, if you called to discuss Ryan again, it's pointless. I've said everything I think. Her words sounded as if she had already put a period not only on our conversation but on our relationship. Mom, you don't understand. I tried to hold back my emotions, but my heart was broken. You ruined my evening. You humiliated me in front of Ryan. And now I've lost him. She paused for a moment, and I thought she finally understood, that she would realize the damage she had done to our happiness. But instead, she replied, Emily, that's your choice. You decided to be with someone who doesn't suit you. I warned you that this would happen. Maybe now you'll finally understand that I was right. At that moment, I realized that there was no hope for understanding. She would never accept my choice, because for her, money would always be more important than feelings. My mom would never see Ryan the way I saw him. Kind, caring, and genuine. You just don't get it, I said quietly, feeling tears welling up again. You'll never understand what it means to love someone for who they are, not for their money. Emily, she interrupted me, life isn't built on emotions. You're too young to understand that. I hope one day you'll realize that I wanted the best for you. I hung up, no longer able to listen to her indifference. My mom had chosen money, and I had lost her. But even worse, I had lost Ryan. Everything I had fought so hard to hold onto had collapsed. Weeks passed, but the pain didn't go away. I kept thinking about how things could have been different if I had just stood up for Ryan from the beginning, if I hadn't let my mom control my decisions. But the reality was different. I was left alone. I tried to get Ryan back. I called, sent messages, but there was no answer. He was gone not only from my life, but also, it seemed, from my world. I realized that he was no longer with me, and that realization was painful. My mom called a few times, but I didn't answer. Every call reminded me that she was the reason I had lost the most valuable thing in my life. At that moment, I realized that I had been left not only without love, but also without family. The last time I saw Ryan was by chance, a few months later. I saw him in a cafe, sitting with another girl. She was laughing, and he was looking at her with the same gaze he once looked at me with. My heart sank. I realized that he had moved on, found his happiness, which I had lost. I couldn't approach him. Sitting by the window, I watched as he moved on with his life, and with every second, the pain grew sharper. He deserved to be happy, but I realized that happiness was no longer with me. When I got home, I finally allowed myself to cry. I could no longer pretend that everything was fine. My mom always said that money brings freedom, but no one had ever told me that it could take away the most important thing, love and happiness. And now I was left alone. Thank you for listening to this story. We hope it touched your heart and made you think about what is truly important in life. Please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. It means a lot to us. Your feedback helps us create more captivating stories. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new dramatic stories. See you next time on our channel.